Hello, and welcome back to the Holistic Hatha Yoga podcast. I'm Kelsey, and I am here today with a deep topic. I feel like we're always kind of diving into some depths, but yeah, today I wanted to dive into some nitty-gritty. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so to celebrate that, to acknowledge that, I'm going to dive into some depths that I think I've touched on a little bit here in the pod. But today, like I said, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. So let's just dive in. So, more or less, I can't tell my yoga story of how I came to find yoga without talking about addiction, without talking about drug abuse, without talking about just deep seated pain. And I think, actually, I know that yoga and the practice of yoga was the thing that was able to get through to me, um, to help myself figure out what I needed to do to overcome these addictions and these patterns and um, these cycles that I was continuously putting myself through. Um, and so I suppose, really, even just starting in at like when I did my first yoga training, my first yoga teacher training, I was in Rishikesh, India. I was there for 6 weeks, but the very first day, um, the first, several days, I'll say, the first week, I was going through heavy, heavy withdrawal symptoms from alcohol, um, to the point where it was difficult for me to feed myself in the morning because, like, I was shaking so bad that by the time my hand got to my mouth to like feed myself with a spoon, like all of the food had been shaken off of the spoon. It was bad, and I didn't realize really how bad it was going to be until obviously I was going through it and I was in a place where alcohol was completely illegal in that state. So it's not even like, even if I really wanted to and tried, like I couldn't go to the corner store and just grab a pint of booze or whatever to sneak or what have you to get through to, calm the shakes and calm the tremors and all the things. So, and mind you, I was 20 years old. I was 20 years old at this point. So, and like as an American, yeah, I wasn't even legally allowed to drink yet, and I was that heavily addicted, if that tells you any amount of the consumption that I had been doing. But to be fair, I had been binge drinking and abusing alcohol since I was, 13, maybe 12 was the first time I got like hammered. But obviously, I wasn't like regularly using alcohol at that point, but fairly shortly after that, it became a weekly situation. And then into, 16, 17, 18 became lots of, long stretches of binge drinking, like we call those benders in the addict world. I was no no what is the word? No stranger, no stranger to a bender, and that continued to like through college. Obviously, it got even to another level, of course, in college because I just was left to my very own devices, and I had a great time. Don't get me wrong, I was not a sad drunk. I was a riot. I was too much fun. But that is where we can get ourselves in trouble, my friends. Like, I do believe that, yes, I was having a great time in a lot of those parties, but also I have to recognize and be truthful and honest in the fact that I did have a lot of uncomfortable feelings when I was sober. And so, um, to numb that, to move away from that, to forget about those things so that I could just be in the present moment, and enjoy and have fun, I needed alcohol, you know? Um, and I also like smoked weed. I did mushrooms and acid and all sorts of psychedelics and stuff. But honestly, I mean, the psychedelics were also, I would contribute those heavily to saving my life. Um, I would have never, I don't think I would have had as an intensive spiritual awakening without a lot of those trips, to be honest. And that sounds a little drug dependent, but at the same time, like, and don't get me wrong, I've had some really beautiful, moving spiritual moments completely sober that have moved me to tears, that were just equally as beautiful, if not more so, because I didn't need a drug to get there. However, that being said, um, psychedelics have an amazing way of just cracking open your mind, your ego, everything that you thought was real, and making you realize that they're all just made up little rules that you have in your head, or that someone else created for you and that you're taking as your own. So, as far as drug addiction goes, I don't put psychedelics under that umbrella. I don't even really look at them as drugs. I look at them as more of a healing tool or a medicine. Because also, like, I've never, I mean, and maybe it's out there, I'm sure. I mean, there's a million possibilities, but I've never personally met someone like addicted to LSD. Like, because that just doesn't happen. You can't just consistently take LSD. You would never get anything done ever in life. But you could like trip every now and then and have a great time and go back into your regular life and like feel very healed, and actually be healed from a lot. And so I feel like I would go through, in my trips, I would get that feeling that I would get the knowing, I should say, not even the feeling. I would get the knowing or the telling from my own consciousness or a higher power, whatever you want to call it. Like, hey, you should probably not drink. Like, just gonna say, like, you should probably not be drinking, period. And I was kind of like, nah, shooed those thoughts away. Like, no, it's okay, it's fine. I like to have fun. It's all good. Because on the surface, it was like I did like to have fun. I had a great time. Like many people will tell you, I had a great time. There's many pictures of me having that great time, and there's also that sense of community, that I received during all of that time. All of my friends were very much also functioning alcoholics, I would say. Um, and we all got through together, and we had so much fun, and we were a awesome little community. But it did have its dark side to it for sure, which was, underlying addiction, or just not dealing with your shit so that you don't ever want to be sober and you just want to, wake up and go do a bong rip and then start drinking, and yeah, so it can get out of hand really fast. So things like that going on for years. And like I said, psychedelics were kind of one of the things, one of my spiritual awakenings before I found yoga, that was kind of like, hey, you should stop drinking. And I'm like, we're gonna table that for now. Let's put that over there, and we'll talk about it later. Um, but then when I really started getting into meditation and finding yoga, I found my first yoga class at a Buddhist Zen temple in Grand Rapids, Michigan, from this amazing little yogi. She's literally an angel on earth, and I love her dearly. Um, she let me come into her classes for free, aka not for free. We bartered, meaning I would clean up the studio or sweep it and mop it or whatever after everyone was done. And well, it wasn't a studio, like I said, it was a temple, so we just had like, it was just like one main studio space. So when we were done with yoga, I just had to clean that up, and then I could go on my merry way. And I got to do, um, or practice and be introduced to Astanga yoga through her. And that class was amazing. And it was not a large class. Like I said, it was at a Buddhist temple, so it wasn't like a niche like cutesy yoga pant Lululemon bullshit. Like, sorry if you like Lululemon, but let's get real here. Um, as I'm wearing like my cotton torn black leggings from Target, but whatever. Anyway, um, so yeah, long story short, she started letting me come to class, and I had started going there for meditation, and then yeah, was able to start going there for these yoga classes, and then that's really when I found out as a Aquarius woman, I can be very airy and not in my body whatsoever. And so, especially when you are feeling disconnected from the heart or avoidant of feelings or emotions, then I can definitely find myself in my head and or not even in my body at all, like literally in the clouds. Um, and so with like they always say, like people say, like your point, your zone of genius is always things that you do where you lose complete track of time, like where you're just like, whoa, what the fuck happened, and so for me those things have always been like art of some sort, typically like painting, or drawing, so art, writing and or reading, and yoga. These are those things that like it's just boom, like uh I can just start, and then like it's just I instantly enter a flow state basically, and like time doesn't matter, does not exist, and I won't think about time until I have finished the flow, and that might be an hour later, it might be 45 minutes, it might be 6 hours later. Like I really love getting lost in a painting when you're getting into like the depths of it, because you can just lose yourself for an hour in just this one area, and then you kind of come out and view everything, and then you zoom in into another area and kind of work on that and come out, and it's this beautiful beautiful expressional way of just really being present and really appreciating what you're viewing at the moment, and really bringing something out of it, bringing something from your mind's eye into reality. Anyway, so I had started learning yoga when I was like from a teacher in real life, not like a Walmart video DVD. You cannot count that. I'm sorry. I like count that a little bit because I'm like, well, I at least was trying. I give myself that. But when I was actually finally like with somebody who was looking at me and helping me personally was really when it helped, when it really, really clicked. Um, which is why I do still love to do in-person things as far as yoga goes, because it is very powerful. But I do find Zoom works out fairly well, as long as you can like make eye contact, still view each other, and take those deep breaths together. So anyway, tangent city here. So yeah, I was probably yeah, I was 18 when I started those classes with her. And that's when I really found out how to ground into my body. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck is this? What is going on? I feel so present. I feel so in it. I'm like breathing and moving, and whoa, here I am. I am alive. I am vibrant. I am here. It was like really like that's the only way I can really describe it. Like, and I wasn't drunk and I wasn't high. I mean, I might have been high before I got to the class, but by the time I was done, like that wasn't what was making me high. It was literally the yoga and the breathing and the grounding and the coming into my own body, that I was like, wow, there is some magic here. There's something here. This is magical. Let's do this more. And I was going to art school at the time as well. And so that was also the time when I was like wanting to spend more time on my yoga mat, just doing stuff, moving, breathing, practicing, versus at my drawing desk, painting, 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 painting. Because again, I mean, I think I could use that as an escapism. Like I said, like I'd kind of escape into the painting and that expression, which I'm not saying that that's a bad way to express. Like I think painting's a beautiful way, but I think I was personally using it a little bit too as too much of an escapism. And I think people can do that, like readers. I think readers can do that too with books. Like sometimes you can just use your book as like an escapism. Like I don't want to deal with life, so I'm just going to read about this. And I'm guilty of that too. Hence, I'm bringing it up. So, um, we have to be careful and like be aware and take note of the way that we're balancing our mental health regimens and the ways that we do support ourselves. Where sometimes we do need to just check out and read a book and relax, and that's great. Other times, maybe you should just meditate into your own body and mind and situation and deal with that instead of constantly escaping. So, anyway, um, so yeah, so at 18, I was finding myself, loving going to yoga classes. That was about the only times I loved being sober. And then in like that 2 hours afterwards, and then it was time to fucking drink. It was time to go and party and have fun and whatever. So it took me about 2 years, yeah, to be like, all right, I'm gonna start, or I want to be a yoga teacher. And I figured out, when I say I figured it out, I just mean literally it all just fell together. The universe conspired in my favor, as it always does, as it does for everybody when they have good intentions that are going to help themselves and others and be of the highest good for yourself and others. The universe always literally pulls through. Literally always pulls through. So I found myself very quickly and easily and simply like having a yoga teacher training in India for 6 weeks on end in a booze free state. And I was like, this is going to be great. This is going to be life changing. This is going to be amazing, of course. But like, I didn't realize how fucked up I was until I got there and until I started going through withdrawal and until I was, shaking and dry heaving and puking and sweating. And thank God it was hot as fuck anyway, so like everyone's sweating, but like, man, oh man, oh man, the shaking, the everything. I mean, my teacher, my um one of my yoga teachers, he was constantly like, why are your joints shaking, why are your joints shaking, and part of that is because I was an overly flexible human who would just kind of hang out in their joints. If you're overly flexible, you know what I'm talking about, where like your muscles aren't holding on, you're literally just like chilling in your bones, and it pushes on them and it makes your muscles very lax and not, aka not strong, not practiced to be strong and sturdy because they're just chilling. So when I started really working on that and learning what my body was doing and that my body was hyper flexible, um, or like double jointed, as some people might say, but like I was, yeah, learning how to function with that. And then also on top of that, huge detox, huge lots of amounts of toxins escaping my system. Um, and yeah, it was a lot. And with that, with all that was, I mean, that was just the physical symptoms. Then there's the mental game. Then there's the mental symptoms of like, I need a drink. I can't have a drink. Okay, there's no drinks. Okay. Okay. We just need to figure this out. Um, I will say I definitely went out and I got myself weed while I was there. I definitely was not 1000% sober in the way of like no drugs ever because like I said, my state was pretty rough. So, definitely went and found some Himalayan ganja and a pipe. I actually still have that pipe to this day. I smoked a lot of hashish and weed with the sadhus on the side of the road. And it was amazing. Like, honestly, all of those times were always amazing. Just sitting there listening and like they're talking and it's like English, basically half Hindi, half English, figuring it all out. The stories, the laughs, the sharing of food, just all of the things. The sharing of the pipe, the hashish or the spliffs, or a lot of times there'd be tobacco mixed with it. And anyway, I didn't just spend my whole teacher training smoking with the sadhus. Although that was very fun. That was fun. Um, but anyway, so I did have like some medicinal things to help with the tremors and with the vomiting and things like that. Because again, I don't put marijuana, and people might just like come at me, bro, but what the fuck ever. Um, I don't put that under the use of drug, simply because it's literally grown from the ground and dried and then smoked. So like I have a hard time calling that a drug. I call that an herb, just like I call like rosemary and thyme and mint and lemon balm and everything else that grows on a fucking plant and we cut and we dry and we use. Um so yeah, to me, I classify marijuana under a medicinal herb, not a drug per se. I think a drug comes from manipulation, um, under of some sort. I think a drug is like alcohol. Alcohol does not just like it's not just out there like jars of fucking moonshine growing off of a tree. Like, do we create it from natural things? Yes, we create everything from natural things, but we have to like create it. We have to put it in these weird situations and we have to ferment it. We literally have to like mold it, like make it like go bad and like eat itself. And that fermentation is the alcohol, and then that's what we consume. So I would put that under much more of like drug slash poison, um, than like marijuana. But I'll get off my soapbox about that because obviously I have no qualms about alcohol. Well, I do have qualms about alcohol for myself at this point in time. Like I am not a drinker. However, I've been there for. I mean, it was, I don't know, I want to say like 15, 16 years, maybe a little more, a little less, plus or minus, that I was a very regular user and um, definitely used it. I was definitely one of those people who like one beer wasn't typically enough. It usually turned into three or four or five. Or if you went and got more beer, I would then just continue to drink or whatever it was. And of course, I went through all the different phases: the beer phase, the liquor phase, the wine phase, the all the different phases. I went through the all the different alcohol poisoning phases, like the oh can't drink spiced rum anymore because alcohol poisoning. Oh, can't drink unspiced rum anymore because of alcohol poisoning. Oh, can't drink that anymore because of alcohol poisoning. I am shocked I never ended up in the hospital for alcohol poisoning, even though I had it more times than I can fucking count. And you might be like, oh, yeah, right, you probably just threw up a little bit. But, like, no, 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 I'm talking like throw up for like 8 hours plus, like where you can't hold down water, can't hold down nothing, like dry heaving 4 hours on end. That happened to me very, very many a time, my friend. Many a time. And if you've ever been there, I'm so sorry. Uh, Pro hack though, if you are there, one of my alcoholic friends came over at 4 in the morning one time when I was going through one of these episodes. He was also wasted at the time, and he said, and he saw my state and was like, yo, bro, you got to stop drinking the water. Your body isn't trusting you anymore because you've been drinking too much booze, and it's going to throw up every single thing that you drink, no matter what. Even if it's water, Gatorade, doesn't matter. You're just going to keep throwing up. The secret here is to eat some ice. Just I chew on some ice chips. It's what I want you to do, and you will actually keep it because you're kind of tricking your body into the fact that maybe you're eating something, you fucking crazy animal, which is what you also need. And then it's probably not booze because you're chewing it. And so it's kind of like this like body mental trust like game between you and your body, and you guys are at war, and like your body's like, bitch, I do not trust you anymore. Anything that you consume is going to be expelled because you are grounded. You're grounded for the next 12 hours from consuming anything because, bitch, you just drank for like 5 days straight or whatever it was, or you just drank a half gallon in a night or like 40 beers and a lot of cocaine. Like, all true stories. Anyway, um, so alcohol poisoning is a bitch. And nobody likes to be there. But again, yeah, I'd say marijuana helped me through in my yoga teacher training. But yeah, back to I guess brain versus body. Like, so after I kind of got the tremors and such under my belt and stopped that, and a couple weeks in of just straight sweating and waking up at 4:30 in the morning and just intense exercise multiple times a day and lots of meditation and reflection and amazing vegetarian food that was full of like delicious and cleansing spices, fresh fruit every single morning, fresh ginger lemon honey tea every single morning. Like, it was the most amazing detox and whatever experience, whatever you want to call it, detox, spiritual detox, body detox, whatever, that I ever could have hoped for or wished for. Even if I would have taken myself to an inpatient place here in the US, I don't think I would have gotten nearly what I got going there. And I was going there to learn to become a yoga teacher. I didn't think I was going there to have the biggest spiritual awakening and detox and basically off to rehab experience. I knew it was going to be life changing. I knew that. I knew it was going to be wild. I knew I was going to learn a ton. And I knew I wasn't going to be the same person afterwards. But I did not know how deeply, how profound, how wild that was going to get. Um, like I said, after I kind of worked through the physical stuff, I found, those like the kindred spirits within the group, that I became friends with and communed with and was just had an amazing connection with and time with while we all learned and went through all these things together. I confronted my own inner demons on so many levels, and saw so many judgments within myself that I was pushing towards others that I realized were actually about me. And it was about my own truth, and about my own hiding and my own shame and my own disconnection to spirit. And that was more jarring than the physical stuff. When I first got there and started going through withdrawal, I was like, fuck, I'm fucked. This is bad. This is not going to be good. But, like I said, about 2 weeks and like I was pretty much good. Um, but it was the mental shit that continued for the next, the full 6 weeks, the whole trip, the whole teacher training where I was just constantly diving into these things, for instance, there was a girl that I just loved her. We became really great friends, and she was about my age, and mind you, I was the youngest person in the teacher training. And like I said, I was 20 at the time. There were some people that were like close in age to me, but I was the youngest. I was the baby of the group. But whatever, that was kind of my life. I was always the youngest of the group a lot of the time. So that was nothing I wasn't used to. Um, and so, yeah, so I had met her and she was talking about being bisexual. And I was just like, what? Whoa, this girl is so cool, so fun, so beautiful. Like, and she's like, like openly just talking about being bisexual. This is kind of wild. And like it's crazy sitting here in 2025 like saying that out loud because this was 2012, 2013. I think it was 2013 maybe. And yeah, like I had came from a small town in Michigan, in northern Michigan, and I had lived in Grand Rapids for a couple of years where obviously that was way more acceptable there, and like I had tons of gay friends and bisexual friends and all of those things, but it was always one of those things where it's like, but I can't say that, or it's I can't admit to that, you know? And that's kind of what I had figured out. Like through my shock of her, I realized like that I was like, I wish I could be as confident as to just straight up state that I'm bisexual. And then I'm like, whoa, whoa, self realization. What did I just say? You know, what am I thinking? And so then, of course, the next like few meditation sessions were just really deep, like diving into these subjects of like, is that a jealousy thing? Like, what's going on there? And so, yeah, it was during that time that I discovered that I was bisexual. And I was like, wow, well, that's interesting, you know, and was able to like say it to others in my family and friends later on, you know, like, oh, by the way, it was funny, you know, coming back from India and everyone's like, oh, how's life, blah, blah, blah. And of course, it wasn't like a every conversation, you know, but every time it's like, well, yeah, I'm bisexual. And people are like, wait, what? Oh, finally. Like, and honestly, that was like usually like pretty much the response I got was like, "Oh, you're finally admitting it." Like, and I was like, "Oh, whoa, like everyone else knew but me? What? Okay, okay, fine." You know, and it's really funny that you can like find these things within yourself through your judgments or thoughts of others. So like I said, like I don't think I would have been able to come to terms with that or like find it within myself to be honest with myself about it had I not, one, been able to be sober for long enough to have those like real thoughts and contemplations with myself, and two, like just be open and honest enough and sober for long enough to again have a train of thought that like goes deeper than just like, all right, well, that's interesting, let's go have another beer and forget about it and move on with our lives. So that was like a life changing, you know, realization I had as well, you know, while I was there. So not only did I realize I was an alcoholic, not only was I learning all these really intense things for to become a yoga instructor, also realized I was bisexual. Like how interesting. So a couple weeks later, you know, just kind of keep on moving through things. I'm just like, oh my gosh, what else am I going to discover? And I obviously discovered my deep seated, rooted, you know, anger and resentment towards my father. Him and I had had a horrible relationship basically since my mother had passed away, which was 10 years prior, 12 years prior to me going to India. So, you know, there's 10, 12 years of just resentment and not to say that it was all bad, because it wasn't. He did a really nice job on the things that he could, and he did do his best in a lot of ways. But he was also an alcoholic. Shocker, you know. Here I am talking about how much I was an alcoholic. Also, come from a very long line of alcoholics. My dad's family has a lot of alcoholics in within it. My mom's family has a lot of alcoholics within it where it's just very normal. And as long as you're functioning, it's fine. You know, as long as you're paying your bills and doing your things and like showing up and being present and like happy, like it's fine to just drink incessantly, which is interesting. Interesting. Hot take, but not really what I want to continue to put forth as a expectation in my life, but I understand that it's totally fine for people, others, you know, and it's not a problem for them. But for me, it was. For me, it was. So, um, yeah, my dad was also alcoholic, so there was a lot of resentment around alcohol and things too. But again, like what do kids do? They like learn to cope the way that their parents cope. And so I learned to cope the same way that he had learned to cope. And so we were all just a bunch of alcoholics not dealing with our feelings. And how good do you think that was going? Like, not well. So, more or less, while I was there, I was, it, especially with him being my only parent, with having lost my mother at 8 years old, and not having alcohol anymore, having to deal with even those feelings of the loss of my mother, without dulling it with alcohol. And then also realizing how much pressure and expectation I had out of my father during those times when he was just another human dealing with the punches, rolling with the punches that life was giving him. And he was ill equipped. He didn't have the tools, he didn't have the mental strength to not turn to alcohol. He was very, very sick, and he still was, even at this time, he was still very much an alcoholic, even when I went to India. And we still didn't, like I said, obviously, we didn't have a good relationship. Um, and so I kind of realized how hurt I was, because obviously, when you're a young adolescent as well, you're like, I'm fine. Nothing, it's fine. It's fine. You just bury it, it's fine. And that was very much what I had done. I just taken all my pain and said it was fine and buried it and said I needed to be strong for XYZ, for this person, for that person, for the people who've already died before us, for all those of people that are coming after us. Like, we need to be here, we need to survive. Um, I had, yeah, a lot of issues with just deep seated despair, really. Um, and so dealing with those feelings, drudging them all up so I could see them, feel them, hug them, release them, let them go, forgive myself for all of my wallowing in self pity, and forgive others for their own faults. I had to forgive myself for all of that, and then I had to look at my father and go, he's just another human. His life got just as uprooted as my own when his wife suddenly fell to the ground, and 3 weeks later she passed away, and he was left with two small children and no family around him, surrounded by his wife's, is now deceased wife's family, whom he doesn't like to see because it just brings up all of this pain of who he's missing, and him not knowing what to do, you know? And I really had to sit with that pain of like what he went through, and his own, and just realize that he was ill equipped. He did not have the tools he needed, but he did his best. He was there. Did he turn to alcohol? Yes, 100%. Is that correct? Whatever. What is correct? What is correct in life, He was there, he fed us, he did his best. And I had to look at that from that adult perspective in order to really like feel sympathy and pain, and see where he's coming from, and like be like, okay, I forgive you. I truly, truly forgive you, because I see that this is fucking shit for everybody. This is hard for everybody involved. And being mad at each other about it, of how we all deal with it being hard, doesn't fucking help anybody at all. And so, with that realization, I was able to, and let me also note, this was in 2013. I did not have a smartphone then. I didn't have a smartphone before I went to India, and it took years until after that I got back, I eventually caved and got one. But so yeah, I didn't have like a phone or anything while I was traveling. The only way I contacted my family was via email. I'd send an email every few days and just be like, "Hey, I'm alive, just so you know. Like, didn't get murdered or something. Like, all good. Touch base later." And that was pretty much all I did. Um, so it was actually beautiful because, like I kind of said earlier, I do love to write. That is a thing of mine that I find lots of joy in. So I was able to write this really just great email, a really great email. That sounds so corny, but I was really able to write from my heart, as corny as that sounds, to my father and be like, yo, I know everything between us has been really fucking like just it's always weird. It's always fucking whatever. Um I'm just here to say I forgive you. I'm dropping everything. Like anything that has happened before now is done. It's forgiven. It's in the past. I don't give a fuck. Like it does not matter. The things that were done. And there's literally nothing anyone can do to change any of it. So let's just fucking move on. And I'm going to be my best self. If you could just be your best self, that would be fucking cool, or just like try, without any like resentment, without any like we're shitty with each other, sassy with each other, or whatever. Like, no, we're just dropping all of it and like moving on. I forgive you. I understand what you went through was really, really, really fucking hard as an adult. And you need to understand that what I went through as a young child was very, very, very difficult to go through as well. And so, as long as we both recognize that, we both recognize we probably didn't have the right tools or thoughts or anything to deal with any of it. But here we are now, 12 years later. Can we just fucking move on? And it was a little bit nicer than that, of course. There was some like, I love you. I'm excited to be back. Like, when I do come back, like, we can start a fresh page, and that's going to be cool. I am looking forward to meeting you again as a human, and you can meet me again as a human, and we can start fresh. And I'm just so grateful that that he took that to heart, that he accepted that apology, and he embraced my, because I obviously also said sorry. I don't think I mentioned that. I apologized for all of my own shit, as well as forgave him for all of his. And it was beautiful what happened because he was able to then, read that, sit with it, um, and write me back and just be like, thank you so much. Like, and it was actually amazing because it took him a few days to write me back. And he was just, yeah, very thankful. And he was just like, thank you so much. I appreciate, all of your viewpoint and the forgiveness. And I just want to move on too. And it brings me to tears actually because he had not been on speaking terms with his sister, one of his sisters. And because of, and pretty much it was since my mom's death, because she never came to the funeral or anything. Like, she didn't reach out to my dad. She didn't like call him and be like, hey, I'm so sorry, or I heard your wife died. I love you. I'm sorry. Like, she didn't come to the funeral, like I just said. Like, she did nothing. She didn't say anything. Everybody else, all of his other siblings, obviously showed up and were there and supportive and blah blah blah, but she just literally didn't give a fuck. But she also was a drug addict. She's no longer alive. She unfortunately lost that battle, um, with addiction, and it's really fucking sad. And but before that, before she did move from this form to another, um, back when I had apologized and forgiven my dad, he had written me back and said, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Blah 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 blah. I want you to know that, like, because of your forgiveness, like, I've really reflected on my own self, and like I have taken it upon myself to write a letter to your Aunt Joyce and forgive her for the past, and maybe hopefully just, yeah, talk to her again in my life, and at this point he hadn't talked to her in 12 years, over 12 years, because and she had tried, within the years, but this was years after my mom had passed away. My dad had written her off, and he was also, like I said, in his own alcoholic hole, and was like, fuck off, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. And so, um, yeah, I was just so moved that he then had, from me forgiving him, he then found it in his heart to turn around and go forgive somebody else that hadn't even asked for forgiveness. Um, and so it was really amazing because he had wrote her and forgiven her, and she had wrote him back, and um, was really happy about him forgiving her, of course, and they did get to talk and see each other a couple more times before she ever passed away. And I'm so grateful that that happened, because I'm just, yeah, I don't think he would have been pleased or happy with himself if he would have let himself just never talk to her again because she hurt him. And then if she would have just died, I don't think he, in his heart as a brother, could have handled that very well. So when she did pass away, I eventually, I was just so very grateful, and still was back then, that he had found it in him to forgive her. Um, because, as I think it's Rumi, or I think it's also from Buddha. I don't know. I remember reading this though at some point. But the Buddhist idea of like anger or resentment or any negative feeling really is just, it doesn't hurt the person that you're mad at. It literally only hurts you. Like, you're holding the burning coal. You're getting burned. Nobody else. Like, yes, sure, that person might see that you give them a shitty look every time you see them, but that doesn't hurt them. Like, that's not their baggage to carry. That's not their hot coal. They're like, oh, okay, well, I guess whatever. I'm gonna move on over here. And um, I think people can get really tied up in that, and they can hold on to those coals thinking that like it empowers them and it makes them more mighty and stronger and whatever. And it's like, no, you're literally only damaging your own self through this. Like, that's not a good plan here, friends. That's not a good plan. So, yes, through my yoga teacher training, I discovered that one, I was a alcoholic, two, bisexual, and three, that forgiveness can like literally change everything about a human. Um, and I also learned a fuck ton about yoga. So, and that was just my first trip. Second trip, also some crazy life changing things happened, but that's a story for another day. Um, But I feel like I went on some big tangents here. I really wanted to talk about a little bit more into alcoholic addiction. Um, but I kind of went off on the tangent of just life in general, but we'll get there. We'll get there. But more or less, I want you to know that um you're not alone if you are a yogi and you are using this to help heal your mind, body, and spirit, also in like the addictive ways, like it's not all fucking rainbows and sunshine. Like, I get that. I understand that. I have been there. And that is why I love yoga so much. But um I don't think it's talked about enough in the yoga community. I think it's like very much love and light, which is great. I do think like what you focus on grows. So you do need to be like primarily focused on what you do want in life and not what you don't want. However, life is hard, and it's good to connect with people and feel seen and validated and known that like you're not the only one having a hard time. Um, uh, Part of this episode, the inspiration to this episode was that I went to my very first AA meeting this past week, and it was actually an amazing experience. My one of my friends, actually one of my yoga teacher friends who I met in my first yoga teacher training, um, over the last year or so, he had like we've just stayed in contact and whatever, and he has mentioned to me multiple times the benefits of AA and what he has gotten from it and blah blah blah. And I've always just been like, well, I don't know, that's not for me, not for me, not for me. I'm not into the whole God thing. I don't like the whole higher power. Like, yes, I'm into like universe and like energy and intention and all of those things, but like I very much I like to be self-responsible, and I think sometimes in religions where you have this like one deity or something, a lot of times people will be like, I'm just going to hand it over to God, like Jesus, take the wheel, you can do this, like blah blah blah. It's like, no, like we need to own up to some shit, and we need to be disciplined in our own choices and actions and thoughts and blah blah blah. So I feel like there's some culpability or accountability that gets kind of given away in those situations. So hence I've just been very like standoffish and yeah, not my jam. However, yeah, like I've been in the yoga world for like a long time now, and I don't although I see tons of stuff about, you know, working on your mental games and, diving into those deep into the shadow work, into the deep-seated fears and unraveling it all through meditation and releasing things through breathing and movement and all of those things. That is all lovely, and those are all valid tools, and I've used all of them to help myself overcome my own addictive habits and thoughts and cycles. Um, but I do find that it helps to not feel so lonely in it. I do feel like sometimes the yogic path can be a very lonely one because it's a very singular one. It's you and you and you on your mat. Like nobody else, you and you. That's it. It's this constant training with you and you and you and you and you. And um it's great, but also it can be um alienating almost, because you're always working on you and you're kind of forgetting about the community that can be around. And sometimes when you don't feel like the community understands you, it can be very difficult to then connect in said community. Um so anyway, long story short, I found an AA meeting that was like a women's group, and it was a secular meeting, which means that they don't talk about God, which means that they still use the 12 steps and whatever, but they just like, instead of saying God or higher power or whatever, they're like, fill in the blank, whatever the fuck you want. Like, just know, like, or like they'll just say, you're self responsible or whatever. But it's still, I think what I found so amazing about it is one, just the people there were from all walks of life, and that was amazing. Two, everybody that was there was just trying to be a better person, you know? They were just trying to be accountable and stay sober and live in service to others. And it's like, what is more yogic than that? What is more, literally, what is more yogic than that? And some of these people were there that were like 20 years sober, and they're still just coming to the meeting because they find community in it. They find, relief, and they haven't had a drink in 20 years, and I'm like, wow, that's intense. I would say I haven't been drinking that much over the last 2 years. But I didn't like most alcoholics, I didn't want to be like, I just don't drink. Because then it's like, then there's the questions, well, are you an alcoholic? And it's like, well, maybe, or maybe I just don't want to poison myself anymore. Either way, get the fuck back. Like, what the fuck does it matter? Why are you questioning me? So I think I had a hard time, overcoming that aspect of it. And then I have had just honestly, even if I had like one beer, like I had one single beer months ago and I vomited my brains out. And I think it was again just my body being like, bitch, we don't do this. I don't trust you because we don't do alcohol anymore because we've already been there and bitch, we don't trust you. And so it's almost like my body's revolting against me on that level as well, which is a good thing. Um, but again, it made me have to reevaluate and look at it and be like, you know what? I should just like abstain from all alcohol, and maybe a meeting wouldn't be bad. And so I was amazed to find, yeah, how many different walks of life there were. People who were newly sober, people who were years sober, um, everyone just there to listen and hear and support and help others and help them find sobriety, and all under the idea that like we're just trying to be our best self. We're going to forgive everything that's happened in the past and try to be our best self. And it was in that meeting where I'm like, wow, this has literally been my path with yoga. Um, like I basically used yoga as my 12-step program without even realizing it, because when you do go through the steps, it's like, I don't even know them in order, but honesty, integrity, discipline, awareness, service, like all of these things that we talk about in yoga, but it's such a singular path there, where it's like we're working on ourselves. Um, where, yeah, I felt like it was a really amazing group to be around and openly talking about it, and it felt very yogic. I was like, we should do a meditation right now. Like, but no, we won't. Obviously, I won't like jump into that. But um, yeah, so I thought it was really amazing. I thought the sense of community was really beautiful. And I hadn't seen something like that, even like in a church, to be honest. To be honest, I will repeat that. I haven't seen the type of community that I saw in an AA meeting, the type of openness, the type of forgiveness, the type of just support and service than I have seen and felt in a church. What? That's insane. That's kind of wild. I've been to a lot of different churches too. Like, don't be like, bitch, you've only been to one. Like, no, I've been to a lot, a whole lot. And I have also felt judgment, a whole lot of judgment. Um, and in this space, it was like non existent. It was just not there. And it was just this really open place. And I was like, wow, okay, I understand. And so much so that I had to then immediately afterwards voice note my friend and be like, hey, just wanted to let you know, like, thank you so much for consistently encouraging me to go check out a meeting, because I finally did, and it was absolutely amazing, and I'll definitely be back. So, um, yeah. So if you are a yogi out there who also has struggled on the alcohol bandwagon, and but you think that AA might be a little bit too weird for you, um, here's your invitation to try it out, and maybe like look for specifically like a secular group. Um, I haven't tried like a non-secular group, so I do think I will try a few different other groups, because there's a million. If you just search like AA groups around you, you will literally probably be shocked at how many there are every single day around you in times that work for you, that don't work for you. There's specific men's groups, there's specific women's groups, there's secular groups, there's non-secular groups, there's like all sorts. And I'm just like, wow, this is like this world I didn't even know existed, and it's quite vibrant and it's real. It's very raw, and I dig it. I dig it. So um, obviously, I'm not affiliated with AA in any way, shape, or form. But this is your invitation that, like, yes, you can be healed and working on yourself and doing all of this self mastery. And you can also go be part of a group where other people do that, um, for free and very simply. And it's called AA. Yes, you do have to have an alcohol problem to like show up and be part of it. Um, So I'm sorry if you that sounds great, but you're like, but I'm not an alcoholic or I have no desire to stop drinking. Like, sorry, that message is not for you then. But if you do have a desire to not drink, but you don't know where to start, um, I would highly suggest your local AA chapter, man. Check it out. Check it out. Um, and you can still do yoga. You can still meditate. You can still be spiritual, but also just meet other people in your community who might know about the struggles of alcohol addiction and what that does in your life. And, sometimes it can be hard to find friendships as well after alcohol use. Because a lot of times, I know for me, I had a lot of friends. Pretty much every single one of my friendships was built around alcohol or had alcohol entwined into it. So, not to say I lost all those friendships, but they definitely all changed. They all had to go through this metamorphosis of like, hey, that's not me anymore. Hey, I don't do that anymore. Like, hey, don't bring that up to me anymore because that's not who I am anymore. Like, it's just and some do fall away because that was the thing holding you together was that addiction. Um so yeah, so it can also be a place to find, some friends if you would like a local women's group, a local women's AA, hang out with someone who does not drink also and does not want to drink and does not suggest that you go to a bar to have a drink or anything, where it can just be really chill. Um so yeah, that was today's really rambly episode. I don't even really know what it's about, but I hope you got some nuggets of good stuff from this raw, open, and unchecked version of myself. So until next time, one love, my friends. Much love to all of you, and I will check you later. Bye.